With the Switch in its twilight years and fans waiting for the reveal of Nintendo's next console, talk of what the next Smash game could be like has started picking up. The community's been divided over what to expect. A reboot? A port of Ultimate? Something more complicated? But all are hoping the next game has a good mix of content, be it new, returning, or reimagined completely. One thing I've seen requested pretty often is for the custom specials feature to come back. Smash 4 gave every fighter in its base game alternate versions of their specials. A cool idea, even if in practice they were imbalanced and impractical to unlock. But what if Smash 6 reimagined the concept from the ground up? Let's entertain that idea. How about we theorycraft a new take on custom specials focused on these 4 characters? It'll work a bit differently than in Smash 4. Each special will have only one alt instead of 2, and they will be alternates and not completely new moves, but each will be more directly inspired by the character's source material while fitting the existing framework. Curious? Then let's get going. Starting with someone who's become very relevant lately. Well, kind of. We've had 3 different Zeldas take the role in Smash so far, and their collective moveset has hardly changed despite that. All eyes are on Tears of the Kingdom for understandable reasons, and while it'd be cool if its Zelda got the nod next game, we don't know if the moveset would change to match. But if not, custom specials are another way we could tap into certain aspects of the latest version of Hyrule. Starting off, Nehru's Love is a key part of Zelda's defensive game plan, granting quick protection and hitboxes to the sides with a long-lasting reflector for Uno reversing zoners. It's important, and actually useful in Ultimate, but this spell hasn't shown up in canon for a long time. Could we supplement it with an alternate that isn't so ancient? Actually, poor choice of words, because we're drawing from the ancient Zonai and one of Hyrule's immortal guardians. Inspired by the Ice Dragon Nadra and the Frostbite armor's combat effect, this version replaces the magic crystals with a ring of ice. It doesn't grant temporary invincibility or reflect projectiles, but the ice deals a single stronger hit with a bigger hitbox. This gives Zelda a heftier punish tool that can still stuff out attacks, and even though it's vulnerable a bit longer at the start, it should still come in handy against brawler characters. Din's Fire is not what it seems. Despite technically being a projectile, it's not built for what projectiles usually do. This aimable detonating flame with a powerful sweet spot is designed more for advantage state tactics like edge guarding. But if you want something more conventional, why not borrow Din Ral's power instead? This version channels the Fire Dragon's element of choice to cast a line of 4 fireballs that can hit people while they're on the move. You can still steer them up or down, and when you let go of B, or they reach max distance, they blow up one at a time. But since these things are smaller and don't have sweet spots, this ult is built more for chip damage, able to tack on extra percent in more situations, and can even zone a little itself. Making one of Zelda's best edge guards less lethal is quite the trade-off though. Meanwhile, her recovery move uses Sacred Winds to teleport in a chosen direction, dealing a powerful hit when she reappears. A far-reaching recovery that can also be a nasty punish in certain situations. What could an ult of this one entail? You probably know already. The remaining dragon has the power of lightning, and that's what we're using. This version summons electric sparks at the beginning, leaves a trail of lightning in her wake as Zelda teleports, and creates a multi-hit shockwave as she reappears. A more proactive recovery move that doesn't require as much precision to hit, but in exchange, its startup is a few frames slower, and its max distance is somewhat shorter. Is the increased utility worth being worse at its base skills? As any wise player knows, it's down to personal preference. And I'd prefer if you subscribed and turned on notifications so YouTube knows more people are interested. Last up is the odd one out. Based on spirit tracks instead of Ocarina of Time, Zelda summons an armored phantom that assembles itself behind her, using one of 5 different attacks based on how much of it got to materialize. Being able to delay its charge by up to a second if it forms completely makes it a key source of stage control that fits Zelda like a glove. But sometimes you want something that pressures people more, right? For that, Zelda calls in a different set of armor with a darker color scheme and a distinct helmet. The Wrecker Phantom attacks by forming a boulder around itself and rolling forward. Travels slower than the regular Phantom, but the big draw is its heavy shield damage. However, you can't turn it loose at all unless it assembles completely, necessitating thinking ahead even more and anticipating enemy movement to force them into predictable approach paths, unless they want to deal with something they don't want hitting themselves or their shields. Now for someone else who's sprung into relevance recently. With a new Pikmin game finally happening after all this time, Captain Olimar could use some new moves to refresh a pretty dated kit. While adding new Pikmin to his repertoire is unfortunately beyond the scope of these custom specials, we do have different techniques and upgrades from the games that we can use. The basis of Olimar's entire moveset is his neutral special, where he plucks a Pikmin out of the ground at rapid speed. He can act alarmingly fast afterward, so pulling up new recruits is no sweat whatsoever. He's been limited to 3 Pikmin at a time since Smash 4, and they come out in a set order. We won't be changing either of those after Brawl proved how imbalanced things get otherwise. But we can pull from a whistle upgrade from Pikmin 2. Partially borrowing the animation of Olimar's down special, he blows a modified pitch on his whistle that causes up to 3 Pikmin, however many he needs for a full squad, to sprout around him. While it's slower than plucking normally, ironically the opposite of its original use, the Pikmin somersault in midair as they pop out, damaging anyone nearby and leaving him less vulnerable for that brief moment, especially since the short-lasting super armor from Olimar's down special is present here too. His side special is another key piece, quickly tossing his lead Pikmin so they latch onto the first thing they reach. The damage over time they inflict is a key part of Olimar's playstyle, and thrown Pikmin can also carry items back to him, with some exceptions. Brawl players still have flashbacks of when he could throw 6 at you with no need to ever interact directly. For our variant, let's pull from how aiming your throws works in the Pikmin games. Press forward and B to have a targeting reticle pop up that you can move around with the left stick. Let go, and Olimar throws his lead Pikmin with expert precision right at the reticle's position. With more startup, you can't wall people out with this move as easily, but you can snipe opponents with more precision, especially since Pikmin that latch on through this version deal more damage. The reticle's range limits adjust automatically based on which color your lead Pikmin is. The only part of the kit based on Pikmin 3, Olimar recovers by summoning a pair of winged Pikmin to carry him to safety. Making it so any other Pikmin with him weigh him down and slow his flight is an interesting risk versus reward, even if he can go really far with a full squad. Had to improvise for the ult, but it looks like the winged Pikmin must have got hold of some ultra spicy spray, because this version has them grab Olimar and fling him upward like a trampoline. You can steer left or right quickly afterward, though the more Pikmin you're holding, the less you're able to maneuver. This variant gives Olimar an immediate burst of movement when recovering in exchange for less total distance. But since he doesn't go into freefall afterward, he can use it for landing mix-ups not unlike certain other characters, which can help with how slow and floaty he normally is in the air. Olimar's down special is a utility move in whistle form. Calls your Pikmin back, if they're not in freefall, reorganizes the ones already following you, cycles which one is in front if they're already ordered, and gives you a few frames of super armor. Very useful for you, very annoying for opponents if timed right. Our ult trades the utility for an aggressive move. Olimar blows his whistle in a different way, ordering all Pikmin currently following him to sprint forward, or jog forward if purple, and latch on to the first fighter in their way, or tackle them if purple. They cover almost half an average stage length, crossing ground quickly, except purple, and return at normal speed if they don't run into anyone. If used in the air, the Pikmin leap forward in a line at about a 30-degree angle downward, and keep falling if they don't hit someone. This gives Olimar a quick way to attach all of his Pikmin to a nearby target to get his damage going, but since it leaves him wide open afterward, and it lacks armor frames and the ability to recall Pikmin, it's quite the risk. We're not done with Hyrule yet. This character with a complicated past has gone from Zelda's alter ego to a separate fighter. Who is that under the mask nowadays? Despite the lack of mainline appearances lately, we can still pull from things introduced to the series recently. When in doubt, a good Sheik warrior knows how to use the resources around them. Needlestorm's been a key part of Sheik's arsenal, especially from Smash 4 onward. Each needle might be weak, but together they're a lightning-fast disruptor that bypasses projectiles and can be comboed off of when used in midair. But sometimes the situation calls for something stronger. And for that, Sheik can swap to a new set of weapons, throwing knives made from cut amber. Takes twice as long to prep overall, and you can only have up to 3 instead of 6, but Sheik throws them one at a time, letting you stock up to 3 throws at once. The amber knives deal nearly as much damage on their own as a full set of needles, and a bit more knockback, creating different combo opportunities. Overall, it's a different long-range harasser with its own upsides, letting you poke at opponents with fewer breaks in your offense. On the other hand, they're more reactable and interact with enemy projectiles now, but that too can help sometimes. Burst Grenade's an odd one. A strong attack on a moveset more about deaths by 1,000 cuts, it's for trapping and conditioning foes in positions where they can't easily avoid it. But there are other explosive materials that a Sheik warrior can find useful. For example, the Dazzle Fruit that definitely got you out of trouble at least once in the depths, be honest. This alternate grenade with the blinding fruit attached to it lacks the initial wind vortex and deals a smaller, weaker explosion, but anyone caught by it on the ground is briefly stunned for easy follow-ups. It's still mainly an advantage state tool, but instead of being a standalone threat, this one's all about what it lets you do after it hits. Lead into a signature long Sheik combo, confirm it into a kill move. The stun may not last long, but with proper training, it's all the time you'll need. Vanish does that classic ninja trick of disappearing without a trace, courtesy of an explosion that might or might not be from a Deku Nut. A teleport with a lot of iframes, it gives Sheik top-notch recovery and occasional surprise kills from the initial blast. Sometimes you want to lean harder on misdirection though, and we can do that using another item from Tears of the Kingdom. The initial vanish for this one is just a puff of smoke instead of an explosion, but when Sheik reappears, she breaks a puff shroom upon re-entry, dealing multi-hit damage to anyone nearby and creating a cloud of spores that obscures her surroundings. Lingering for a couple seconds and blocking players' views, it conceals whatever Sheik is up to while hiding in it. With less direct damage but more mind game potential, it lets you be even sneakier than usual. But with shorter invincibility before she disappears, it's riskier to use off stage. Adjust your tactics accordingly. Then there's this thing. The fish motif on this weird heel flip goes deeper than you'd think. The move's name has aquatic motifs in every language, and if you look closely, there are water effects on the start of the leap and on the kick. A good variant could tap into these themes more directly. Inspired by the Zora and their talent for swimming up waterfalls, this version has Sheik start with a rising kick at a steep angle, with a slightly modified animation to resemble swimming upward. At the apex, Sheik slams straight down heel first, creating a splash of water when she hits the ground or a platform. Anyone struck by the rising part gets sent into the path of the falling kick. Closer in style now to Yoshi and Bowser's down specials, this version's a vertical call-out instead of a horizontal one like the original. It may be weaker than its counterparts, but not only is it faster, the second hit opens up new combo routes in very in-character fashion. This masked swordsman's glory days of Brawl may be long behind him, but he's picked up a lot of moves in the years since, and he's itching to show them off. Let's see what our take on custom specials lets Meta Knight tap into to become even more daunting, yet fair, of an opponent than ever before. Mach Tornado's swirling cyclone carries him around and strikes anyone in his path. It used to drag people in for multiple hits, and was nigh impossible to contest in Brawl. But nowadays it's a single hit that also grants mobility. Sometimes you do want that multi-hit aerial threat though, so how about we borrow from how it works in Kirby's Return to Dreamland. For this version, pressing B has Meta Knight rise up and spin his sword as it emanates darkness. Might lack the original's tornado visuals, and he can only barely move during it, but it pulls opponents in better than the OG, deals multiple hits like its old versions, and finishes with a sword slash at the end that packs legit power. A more stationary anti-air or mid-air roadblock, it may be more situational, but it lays on the pain harder in those situations. Teach those rookies not to jump so carelessly when you're nearby. Drill Rush is something Meta Knight holds off using outside of Smash. It's actually based on a move Kirby gets when wielding Meta Knight's sword in Amazing Mirror. Maybe because it's more useful in a platform fighter, as a multi-hit corkscrew stab you can steer up and down that drags opponents with you. You could aim it toward the abyss offstage for a suicide kill, but Meta Knight would never be so dishonorable. And he has a variant that trades damage for finesse. A recurring move in his playable roles, this quick dashing thrust only deals one hit, but it comes out faster than the original, can still be angled up or down by pressing either direction at the start, and it doesn't put him into freefall. A quick mix-up tool replacing a move designed for reads, this one's more applicable in more situations even if it does less damage. The knockback pops people up on hit, making it useless for edge guards, but it does set up position-dependent combos at lower percents. Remember when Shuttle Loop was one of the hardest hitting moves in Brawl and was nigh unpunishable? It may be reined in now, but it's still a fast damage dealer, combo finisher, and stock taker. It's actually Meta Knight's version of a command throw Kirby's wing ability can pull off. And our alternate will pull from that in a different way. Meta Knight starts with the same rising uppercut as before, but instead of looping backward into a second hit, he performs a quick, full 360-degree loop in the air above. Anyone caught by the start is sent right into the middle of where he makes the loop, and at the end, the air he encircled violently ruptures. More focused on AoE damage than carrying foes upward, its solidly sized area of effect can really help considering most of his attacks have small hitboxes, but with less vertical reach, it can't kill off the top as early, and as a recovery move it's laggier and doesn't go quite as high. Finally, Meta Knight's cape lets him disappear, teleport a short distance, and re-emerge with a powerful, yet very punishable, sword slash. It's his way of teaching another combat lesson. Always be ready for mix-ups, and never drop your guard completely. But that's not all his cape can do. Referencing two different things at once, Meta Knight pulls the cape in front of himself but doesn't disappear. You can hold B to stay in this position for close to a second, and if a projectile strikes him while in this stance, he flips the cape then, destroying it on contact like he does in Brawl's first trailer, and creating a fast-moving shockwave like a recurring attack of his in recent games. The shockwave's power is based on the projectile he stopped with an added multiplier, giving Meta Knight a pseudo-reflector for matchups where such a thing would help out more. Let you impart a different lesson. Over-rely on projectiles at your own risk. And there you have it, my personal take on how to reimagine the concept of custom specials and what form that might take for these four characters to make them even more compelling fighters. Would be nice to see the feature come back in Smash 6. Who knows, maybe I'm pretty close to what we'll actually get. Wishful thinking, I guess. Still, pretty fun to come up with this stuff. So much that I've done several other episodes already. This is actually the 6th one, so check out its predecessors if you're interested. And if you're up for other Smash theory crafting, I have other series like this, from fighter designs for characters who haven't made it in yet, to remaking older movesets that haven't aged well, and more. Special thanks to the following for helping make this video happen. Extra shout out to my patrons for the continued support throughout this long stretch between Smash games. Means a lot to me that you're still interested. So, until next time, wonder what an alternate of this series would look like.